Let's go live to our political contributor, Chris Uhlmann. Chris, we've discussed this over the weeks, months, and I think it is going to be the reality for the next 4 and a bit weeks as well. The presence, almost omnipresence of the US president has implications for our campaign.
Yeah, and the thing to do, Kieran, is to watch people's language and the way that it changes, and we've seen changes in the language of the coalition certainly today in that interview with Andrew Clennell, and also in the government over the last little while, as both of them recognises that Donald Trump's a boat anchor for the coalition on this campaign. Being seen to be too close to the US president, as I think Peter Dutton was early on when he was saying he was better able to deal with him, is not a good thing in an Australian election. Just as they're finding in Canada, what's happened in Canada is that Donald Trump is playing hugely into that election campaign and is boosting the stocks of the Liberal Party, which of course is the equivalent of the Labor Party there. The Conservatives were leading that race and now they find themselves behind because the race that's being run in Canada is by the Liberals against Donald Trump. Now we're seeing that beginning to bleed into the Australian campaign. And although there'll be many people who are conservative who think that Donald Trump is great, they probably represent about 20% of the Australian population. For the other 80%, Trump makes them very, very uneasy indeed. And there's a recognition now from the coalition that they've got to draw a dividing line there.
And for a lot of conservatives, I think of Tony Abbott as one where there were real concerns expressed off the back of that confrontation with President Zelensky in the Oval Office. So that added a complication to all of this as well, Chris. And I guess, just to reiterate your point about Mr. Dutton's comments to Andrew in that interview, that's not an accident. That's a premeditated muscling up, really, of his language on this issue, isn't it?
Yeah, Kieran, and we both know from watching election campaigns for a long time, you watch the language and you watch for changes in language and you watch where they go. And we've got two very big signs this morning. They're both in Victoria. How many times have we seen election campaigns played out mostly in Queensland? So where do they think the big gains and big losses are to be made this time? They're in Victoria. So that's one thing to take out of today. And the other thing is to watch the change in this language. And it will get tougher as this campaign continues. And look, the one thing that we do know about Donald Trump, he cares only about the United States and pretty much himself. So any other country is an afterthought. Australia will have to make its own way in a world where the world order has changed. But there's another president we should worry about, and that's Xi Jinping. And he's also pushing the boundaries at the moment. And we've seen now a circumnavigation of Australia by the warships of China, and now we see a research ship back to the southern part of our continent. Now that is an assertion of China's view about where the world is heading. I don't think the Prime Minister's language has been particularly tough on that. I think you'd prefer they're not there. It's hardly Churchillian, is it? We'll fight them on the beaches, or you'd prefer they weren't there?
Well, it's interesting that dichotomy, though, of the Chinese approach now, because you've got that show of force and assertion, as you rightly point out, Chris, but at the same time, the Chinese top diplomat in Australia, they've shelved the rhetoric, the wolf warrior rhetoric. He's talking about Trump being an opportunity to grow economic ties between Australia and China.
Again, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. If our relationship with China is so fantastic under the Labor Party, why is it that we saw a live fire exercise off our coast? And how unusual is that, Kieran? Well, the last time that we saw a non-ally using live ammunition off the eastern coast of Australia was during the Second World War. It was the Imperial Navy of Japan. Through the 1940s, there was an enormous amount of live fire. China's sent us a message at the moment. We are, in its view, alone and naked at the bottom of the world. It does not believe that the United States will come to our aid should push come to shove. So they're letting us know that they're in our neighbourhood. They intend to stay in our neighbourhood, and there's very little that we can do about it.
We announced yesterday on this program that Sky News has secured the first debate of Election Campaign 2025. It's the Sky News Daily Telegraph People's Forum on Tuesday of next week. A room full of undecided voters, Chris, and the beauty of the format is we don't know where it's going to go. It's unpredictable, and it's going to be the voters, undecided voters, who ask the questions. You would imagine cost of living will get a run, energy prices will get a run, house affordability would likely get a run as well.
Yeah, look, I think it's the cost of living, and then daylight and energy is all part of that, and housing affordability is all part of that. And also, too, we'll get a bit of a barometer on how these two opponents match up against each other. The first time the People's Forum is always a great measure of that, and you don't tend to get some of the ducking and weaving that you get in other formats, because they can't really do that when it's the people that are asking the question. So really looking forward to that. And I'd have to say, in the early part of this campaign, comparing it to the last one, Kieran, I think the thing that you would say is the Prime Minister looks very confident, and he certainly didn't at the beginning of the last campaign. So that tells you something about where he's tracking. And we've seen some changes in the Coalition's campaign since the beginning. So that tells you something about where they think they're headed. It's very early days, but don't forget, people start voting early. So these early weeks of the campaign are important. People's Forum will be great. Can't wait. Bring it on.
Chris, appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week after the forum on Tuesday night. The must-watch event of the campaign is on Tuesday, a room full of undecided voters, grilling Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton, the first election debate, 7:30 p.m, live here on Sky.